Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Travel Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Gemma, founder of Travel Insights AI, where we explore people and stories shaping the future of travel. Now, today, I'm very fortunate to be joined by James Palmer-Tomkinson, the founder of PT Ski, a family-run ski operator specializing exclusively in Klosters, Switzerland. And I think what makes this conversation particularly special is that James's connections in the Klosters aren't just professional, it's deeply personal and generational. So James, it's lovely to have you here today. Welcome on the show.
Well, Gemma, very nice of you to have me on.
Thank you. And so we had a bit of a pre-chat before, so I'm really interested to get to know you better on the podcast, and obviously for more people to get to hear from you. I'd love to start with the personal side first. So your family history with Klosters goes back decades. Could you just tell me a little bit about that story and how the place became very personal and important to you at the same time?
Yes, my family history goes back quite a long way in Klosters. My grandparents met there in the 30s. My grandmother's Swiss, and she had been taken there as a young girl by her grandmother. They came from Basel, so they were regulars every winter since, I guess, the early 20th century. And then my grandfather, he was racing for the British team. He went there with his family, having started skiing, I think, in Lenzerheide. But as I say, they met in the 30s and then got married, and then took my father, his two brothers and sister on a regular basis to Klosters as well. It very much became a home from home, which I was very fortunate to find myself in a similar position when my parents started taking us skiing, and we went there every year since I was very small.
That's incredible. Wow. And when would you say it shifted from a personal connection to business idea?
I suppose that's a good question. I got very involved with a local ski club there. It was one of the old British racing ski clubs called Marden's Club, similar to the likes of Kandahar and DHO, which are perhaps better known amongst the ski racing fraternity. And there was a very amateur junior race training program, which I got involved in running when my children were small. So I had a quasi amateur introduction to a sort of more formal relationship with the destination through that, engaging with the local ski schools and one or two other suppliers, which meant when we set up PT Ski about 15 years ago, we already had some quite strong relationships with the village that we could build on. But I suppose it was when we started PT Ski that it really became a place of business as well as a place of enjoyment.
Yeah, I think being able to marry the two is something really special. It comes from a personal place, which is great.
Well, I think you're right. It is very personal, and one of the things that we always love doing, I say we, but my wife and I set up the business together, but certainly what we always loved is introducing people to Klosters, friends of ours, and showing them what we loved about it. And the business was very much an extrapolation of that, just building up, just showing people what it was that we felt made the place special.
Yeah, it's a natural progression for sure. And that's great. And so in an industry where I would say maybe many operators expand into multiple destinations, you've stayed very focused. What made you confident in specializing in one place? And is there anywhere else in Switzerland that you actually respect and like or have skied at? Or is it just the Klosters?
Well, there's several places in Switzerland that I do love to visit, and wider across the Alps generally. As you can probably gather, it's a passion of mine. So I have been to quite a few places across the Alps, and they all have their wonderful features that you get to love. But I think what we decided when we were starting the business is yes, we could go across lots of destinations, but you're then becoming very similar to a lot of other operators. There was no one operating in Klosters. We knew it well. That was clearly our core strength, was to operate there. So I suppose it wasn't a difficult decision to make to become a single resort specialist. And the thing is, as soon as you start going to a different destination as well, then we're spreading ourselves more thin. We can't be in two places at once. And since what we're trying to do is so personal, where we want to be so involved in everyone's holidays, not just in the organization, but also in the delivery, that becomes a lot harder if you're trying to be in two places at once.
Absolutely. I think you've struck your unique selling point in one go, which is a great approach and a brave approach to take, obviously, because some people can be typically about the numbers, but yours is deeply personal. And could you also walk us through what a typical PT ski experience looks like today from a guest perspective?
Yes, I mean, first and foremost, what we want our guests to feel is well looked after, and in many senses, just to be able to leave their brains at home and properly enjoy their holiday. I think you get a lot of people who they spend all year having to make decisions, whether it's for themselves, for their business, for their families, and actually to be able to go on a holiday and not even think about anything. We have people who come out and they know the resort well, but if me or one of my team are hosting them on the mountain, they're absolutely delighted not to have to decide which piece to go next. So we really see that in our guests, that they are able to relax and enjoy their holiday. I mean, I suppose our core business is family holidays, particularly at half term. So from a guest perspective, we will take the parents around the piste, take them to nice places for lunch, show them at some of our favorite spots, while at the same time their children can be looked after in our kids courses. So we take children from anywhere from 4 to 14, and once they become teens, we have a more teen appropriate offering with less hand holding. Teens don't want to be in ski school, let's face it. So it's a bit more adventurous and expansive for them. And we just make sure that everything else surrounding their holiday is as they want it. So we'll recommend places to go out for dinner. We'll make all the bookings if they want to go on a horse and sleigh ride. Well, whatever it might be, we'll organize all of that for them. So it really is a very enjoyable holiday, we hope, from their point of
Yeah.
view. That's certainly what we're trying to achieve. And it might be worth saying that we're not just about the family outside of those family weeks. We run off-piste weekends in a very similar philosophy in terms of we want people who love off-piste to see what it is that I love about off-piste skiing in Klosters, which is a fabulous place to ski outside of into the backcountry. And yes, we also get people who just don't necessarily want to come at half term or the holiday periods, just groups of adults who we like to look after as well. So it is an all winter offering, but clearly half term and the holidays are a key focus for us.
Yeah, sure. I think you've covered there obviously the concierge approach, the personal approach, full service weeks, and I suspect you, as you mentioned before, that you do give WhatsApp support. You're just at the end of a phone when people need help, and I think that can fully help them switch off and be immersed in the experience just because of all the support that you're giving them.
Yes,
So
it's a good point that you touch on, because I didn't mention that sort of new string to our bow, and that we used to have season staff for the whole winter.
okay,
And for reasons that I won't bore your listeners with, we took the decision this year to only have staff in resort in the key times, or me in resort at key times. And as you alluded to, we now provide that concierge service. They're still getting the benefit of all of our knowledge and expertise and contacts, but that support comes from from being constantly on WhatsApp and being able to answer questions people might have at any time of the day. We got one the other day, literally saying, "I'm on this mountain on this run. Where do I go next? And is there a really nice place for coffee near here?" And that was soon followed up by, "Yeah, I love the place for coffee. Where should we go for lunch?" And we were able to book that for them there and then. So that support is there for the whole of their holiday.
That's great. And technology has evolved so much. Just being at the fingertips of being able to get support just goes to show how you go over and beyond. So, and that's good to hear. It sounds like a happy experience customer there.
Yeah, well, we hope so. And interestingly, I think what does make this approach a little bit more unique is with the advent of AI and all the help you can get on the internet. What that can't give you is any of that sort of personal knowledge of what places really are good, because we can articulate, this is where you should go for lunch and this is why we like it, and that's a deeply personal
Absolutely.
recommendation, and AI can't replicate that. And I think people appreciate that
Sure.
difference.
I'm calling 2026 the year of authenticity. With all the AI noise that is around, this just shines through when you're getting a real human experience. So that's great. And just moving on. So one thing that really stood out to me is we spoke about is how central community is to what you've built. And you see families returning year after year and friendships actually forming between guests as well. So, how intentional was that versus something that just happened organically?
I would love to say it was all intentional. I would say it's one of those things which pleasantly took us by surprise. It isn't something that we consciously set out to do, but with the benefit of hindsight, if I was to do this again, I think it is something that we would want to consider a lot more actively, because it is very, very powerful. As you say, we've got a lot of guests who come back year after year. Their their children have grown up together, going to being in the same groups on our kids' courses. They know each other well. They interact throughout the year, as do the parents, that they look forward to seeing each other again on their ski holidays. And we've had quite a few guests who, for whatever reason or other, decide to go somewhere else for their ski holiday one year, and then they come back the next year because they say, oh, the children, they want to be with their friends, they've missed them. And similarly to the parents, find the same. But we also have the same on some of our off-piste weekends. People like coming back and seeing the familiar faces and picking up on those old connections, and that makes it
Yeah.
much more sticky. And I think the other side of it as well, which we're very fortunate to have, is a lot of our peak week staff come back year after year. The guests very much like catching up with them as well. So it's not just the relationship guest on guest, it's also the interaction, the continuity between
That's it.
our guests and us as well.
Yeah, the familiarity of returning to a place that, essentially feels like a home from home as well, I guess, is quite strong. And I mean, yeah, you've described what it feels like to see guests come back and grow year on year. It must be incredible.
No, it's lovely to see, and then they also get to know the resort better, and I think Klosters as a destination, it's a low key, it's a very ordinary, I suppose, mountain village. It grew organically as a ski resort from the dawn of skiing. So there's nothing purpose built about it. A strong farming community along local community, and guests enjoy interacting with that and enjoying that authenticity. And they get to know the places that they like, and they get that feeling of familiarity, and also for their children a sense of safety. There's not lots of bars. One nightclub, which I think is only open 3 days a week or 3 nights a week, A very small number of bars. It's got a cozy, safe feel to it where parents can feel they can let their children off the lead, so to speak, without having to worry too much about them.
Yeah,
And
and
I think
that's
for children, that gives them a much greater sense of ownership of a place. They get a stronger sense of belonging as a result. So the whole lot coalesces into making everyone feel that Klosters is a place that they want to continue coming back to.
I think I'm ready to sign up. This sounds
Yeah, well, you should. You should.
No, you've really described it very well. There's so many important elements today when it comes to travel that, people are looking to make sure that the safety element is there. There's something interesting for everyone. It can be multi-generational, but you've really ticked all of the boxes. And moving on to, word of mouth and just talking about growth realities, you mentioned something interesting when we spoke before, and that is that word of mouth has been incredibly powerful, but also makes the business, sometimes could be a bit hostage to fortune. You mentioned that previously. What did you mean by that?
The word of mouth is the most powerful form of marketing. We all know that.
Yeah.
The personal recommendation is very strong. The trouble is you don't know who's saying what to whom. You have absolutely no control over it. And when you're a small business like ours, or you struggle to allocate a marketing budget effectively. So much so that we don't really advertise it at all because, I mean, one advert in a broadsheet would probably be our annual marketing budget were we to have one. And you have to have a campaign. You need those adverts going out every day or rather every week for a number of weeks. We just can't do that. So while we've tried to market and we've gone through our personal networks, we ski a lot, we speak to a lot of skiers, that all helps. But ultimately, we are so reliant on that word of mouth for new business. It works, it really does, and we've been the beneficiaries of that. But we have no idea from one year to the next where those phone calls are going to come from, and it does make visibility of future earnings very, very hard to predict. It just seems to work, thankfully.
Yeah, I mean that's great if that's the way it's going. You want to continue, but yeah, I'm sure there's scope in the future to try and see who's telling who, or what they're saying. That it's actually really positive because a lot of people don't have enough visibility, and it's just a testament to your character, your business, and what you've built. That people are spreading the good word. So that's really nice to hear. Just moving on to Ski Her Way. You're also launching that. And I wanted to ask what sparked the idea and what did you notice about women only trips that made you want to grow it?
Well, I think firstly, I can't take all of the credit or perhaps not even very much of the credit for this. As I mentioned, this is a business I run together with my wife. We're equal partners in the business. And this is something that she's felt very strongly about, and it is, it's fair to say, is more of the driver of this
Yeah.
for obvious reasons. It probably doesn't make sense for me to be the face of ski her way, but it was very much a concept born out of ladies only off piste weekend that we've been running for 7 or 8 years now. And that in itself was born out of one of our regular off-piste weekends where we just happened to have 5 women and 5 men on the weekend. And the groups divided naturally into being a women's group and a men's group.
Okay.
And the women just all commented, said, this is such a nice environment to ski in. We don't feel the same pressures, it just feels more relaxed and cozy. And we thought, yeah, well, let's take this forward and do it more formally. Now we've seen that and we've seen how powerful it is, and we've seen it in other environments. We're doing a tie-up with and supporting a paddle organization, Empower Paddle, who do paddle and bring paddle to a female audience and promote it. And a lot of the themes are very similar. And it's, I suppose, prompted us to think that we could do a lot more in skiing to look after the sort of support, promote to a more female audience. So
Yeah,
much of the media, the Instagram, it's all guys on Instagram doing guy stuff, but there's so much scope. You go onto Instagram and you see some of the women out there who have big followings, and it's a very different vibe to what guys are putting on their social media. So let's try and even up that balance, put
absolutely.
more out there for the female audience, and tailor some of these things for them.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And the world has changed dramatically, and women are actually looking for fellowship and community more than ever. There's so much, we've got so much of a stronger voice. And, it's nice for women to be able to exchange ideas and, offload. And it's kind of like what do we say? The trip that left the group chat. So the
Yeah.
trip that actually made it out there in millennial terms.
Well, it's been something that's been really interesting for me to witness, because it's not something that I can personally feel, but I
Yeah,
can see it on the mountain. I can see a group of women skiing together and the fun that they have together. And it really is very different kind of camaraderie to a mixed group or a men's group. And what we love doing is just seeing people enjoying the mountains. And this is just another way for a subset of skiers to get the most out of their time
I
on the
think.
slopes. I suppose the reason why we alighted on Ski Her Way is that skiing is very personal. That you get the most out of your skiing when you do it for yourself. When you ski the mountain the way that you want to ski it. And I suppose what we've found is that a lot of women feel that they need to ski it the way other people think they should ski it. So they're tailoring their skiing for others rather than just thinking, this is what I want to get out of the mountain. This is what I want to get out of my day. I'm skiing this for me, and I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm going to embrace it. So I think the name resonates.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, good luck. As someone who's just come back from a family ski trip, I think Ski Her Way would be top of my list. It's just a completely different environment. And now we're looking to, as a group of girls, actually, there's becoming an annual ski trip amongst a lot of extended friends and groups that I know. It's becoming like the non negotiable getaway rather than actually chasing the sun or going to Spain or Marrakesh or, the Middle East for a girls' trip. It's actually becoming a ski trip because there's just that you can really just come together and support each other and celebrate each other and be at peace up in the mountains. Well, that's my take anyway. I really do feel the most sense of calm I ever do when I am skiing.
Well, I mean, you've perfectly encapsulated what a lot of women tell us, what my wife certainly feels about skiing and the mountains, and it does bring it all together. And yeah, we would love to see more of it.
Yeah, that's great. So just stepping back slightly, what do you think, or what would you say is the hardest thing about running a small specialized travel business today?
Well, that's a good question.
Pretty spot.
I think one of the tough ones when you're small is staying on top of all the regulations and the varying rules, because you don't have an HR department, you don't have a compliance department or an in-house lawyer or anything like that can
Yeah,
keep you on the straight and narrow. We're very reliant on our connections to industry associations and trying to stay up on top of developments. But it's certainly a hard one. And yeah, we do our best to stay in the rules, but in an ever changing world where rules are constantly changing, it is hard, and it's a and it's a disproportionate part of the business probably. And some of those rules bring their own challenges. I suppose the legislation and not wanting to get overly boring about it, but the way that the customer protection, which is really important for the travel industry, is that customers can travel and be financially protected. But the way that interacts with the insurance industry normally means that it is the tour operator who is actually the insurer of the holiday.
Okay.
Not the insurance companies, and customers are also able to or entitled to book without taking any risk for themselves, which in certain circumstances I would say inhibits the opportunities that the travel industry can actually give to customers. You would never be able to send someone somewhere, shall we say, a little more risky, because if the government's recommendation changes that says you can no longer, we no longer recommend that you travel to such and such a place, then the tour operator just has to give all the money back. So from a tour operator point of view, you're just not going to organize holidays there. So I think that does present problems for the adventure travel market that might want to take customers to more interesting and esoteric parts of the world. It's customers can't sign away their sort of rights to that protection. So I've slightly digressed away, but I suppose
No, that's
it's
really interesting. It
it's
genuinely is really interesting to know that. I mean, you wear multiple hats, and there's so much that goes into the background of forming these special trips together. It's important for people to know the work that goes in. And I guess this leads me on to my last question. For someone who is actually listening and thinking about building a travel business, a niche travel business, what would you say is the one lesson you've learned that really matters?
I suppose that the main thing we learnt was how little we knew.
You knew a lot, but a little.
Yeah, you're constantly being surprised by what's coming your way. There's all sorts of things which come at you that you don't expect, and that, I suppose, is the challenge of running a small business. But I think that the main lesson is really to listen to your customers and what it is that they're wanting to get out of their holidays, and evolve your product, evolve your offering, so that it's meeting those requirements.
That's incredible, James. Thank you so much. This has been such a thoughtful conversation, from family legacy to community and the realities of running a small but high touch travel business. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Well, Gemma, thank you very much for having me on your show.
This has been great. But before we finish, where can people find out about PT Ski and learn more about what you do?
Well, the easy place is on our website, www.ptski.com. But also follow us on Instagram. We have a PT Ski Instagram. There's also Ski Her Way, has a separate Instagram account, or just email us, info@ptski.com. We'd be delighted to hear from anyone, as long as they love talking about skiing.
That's great. And thanks everybody for listening to the Travel Leaders podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with somebody in the travel industry. Thank you.